I never thought I'd be the guy posting something like this, but here I am. My name's Mike, and I've got a story that's still messing with my head. I was supposed to marry Emily in just a week. We'd been together for about 3 years, and honestly, I thought we had a good thing going. She seemed perfect, smart, funny, gorgeous, and she always made me feel like I was the only guy in the world. We were planning a big wedding, and I was finally starting to believe I'd found my forever. But honestly, looking back, there were tiny signs I ignored or brushed off. Little things that didn't add up, but I was so caught up in the excitement and the idea of us, I didn't see what was really happening. She started acting weird a few weeks before the wedding. She'd be short-tempered, snapping at me over nothing, and sometimes she'd get this distant look in her eyes that made me feel like I was talking to a stranger. I blamed it on stress, on the pressure of planning everything, and maybe she was just nervous. But then I noticed inconsistencies in her stories. She'd say she was working late, but I'd catch her texting someone secretively, with her phone hidden under the table. She'd get defensive if I asked about it, say I was paranoid or insecure. I told myself I was overthinking it. I wanted to believe she loved me, that she'd never do anything to sabotage what we had. Then came the big sign that something was seriously wrong: her phone. I never normally went snooping, but one night I accidentally saw a message pop up on her screen. It was from someone named Jard. The message was casual, but it was clear they'd been talking for a while, and the tone was intimate, stuff you don't say to a coworker. My stomach sank. I felt this cold punch to the gut because at that moment I knew deep down that Emily had been sneaking around behind my back. I didn't want to believe it, but there it was. The pieces started falling into place. The late nights, the secretive texts, her defensiveness, everything was connected. I remember feeling numb, like my brain was trying to process what I'd just seen, but also like I'd been hit by a truck. How could she do this? How could she cheat on me just days before our wedding? It felt like my entire world was crumbling and I hadn't even confronted her yet. I wasn't sure what I was more angry about, the fact that she betrayed me or the fact that I'd trusted her so blindly. I started sweating, my chest tight, and at that moment I knew I had to do something. I had to find out the truth, no matter what. So I waited until she came home that night, trying to decide how I'd confront her, what I'd say, what I'd do if she lied her way out of it. But I already knew. I knew everything. The next day I couldn't focus on anything. My mind kept circling back to the texts I saw, to the way she had lied about working late for the past week, and to the fact that she had been sneaking around behind my back. I felt sick. It was like I'd been punched in the stomach 100 times over. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I let things get this far. I was furious but also deeply hurt. How could Emily, the woman I was about to marry, do this to me? And with my boss, no less. Jard was a guy I'd always trusted. He seemed like a decent guy, professional, someone who would never do something like this. But now I saw that even he had been caught in her web. I decided I couldn't just sit there and do nothing. I needed to know everything, every detail of what had happened. So I started digging. I looked through her phone again, went through her social media, her emails, every message she had sent or received. And what I found was worse than I expected. There were explicit texts, detailed conversations about sex, about secret meetups, and even some pictures, things I never imagined she'd do. It was like reading the script of a betrayal I never saw coming. I felt a mix of shock, rage, and heartbreak all at once. How could she be so careless, so reckless? Did she even care about me? About what we planned? It seemed like her lies ran deep, and I wondered how long this had been going on. I decided I needed to confront her face to face, but I also knew I had to do it carefully. I couldn't just accuse her outright. I wanted her to confess, to tell me the truth herself. So I waited until she got home that evening, trying to stay calm but feeling like a volcano ready to erupt. When she walked in, I was already sitting on the couch, her phone in my hand. She looked surprised, maybe even a little nervous, but she tried to brush it off. "What's going on, Mike?" she asked, her voice dripping with annoyance. I looked her straight in the eyes and held up her phone. "I know everything, about Jard, about the texts, about the sex." Her face instantly went pale and she tried to deny it, but I wasn't buying her bullshit anymore. She started lying, saying it was nothing, just some stupid flirting, that they were just coworkers and it didn't mean anything. She told me I was paranoid, jealous, and that I was making a huge deal out of nothing. She even accused me of overreacting, saying I was ruining everything because I didn't trust her. I felt like I was losing my mind. The woman I was supposed to marry, the one I loved, she was lying to my face. Everything she said just made me angrier. How dare she call me paranoid when I was just trying to protect what was ours? How could she stand there and pretend she hadn't been sneaking around? My heart pounded, and I was so furious I could barely speak. I told her she was a bitch for cheating on me, for lying, and for treating me like I was some idiot who wouldn't find out. She looked shocked at first, then angry, then she started crying. But I didn't feel sorry for her. I felt betrayed by the woman I trusted the most. From that moment, everything changed. The trust was gone. The wedding was off, and I knew I couldn't stay with someone who had lied, cheated, and used me like a damn fool. But even after the confrontation, something in me snapped. I didn't want her to get away with this. I decided at that moment I'd find a way to make her regret her choices, to make her pay for what she'd done. I was hurt, yes, but I also felt a burning need for justice, even if it meant losing her forever. After I confronted Emily that night, things only got more intense. She broke down, tried to apologize, pleaded with me not to ruin everything. She said she was sorry, that it was just a stupid mistake, that she loved me and never meant to hurt me. Yeah, right. That's what she kept saying, but I wasn't buying her bullshit anymore. I looked at her and thought about the last 3 years, about all the plans, all the promises, and how she'd thrown it all away for some stupid affair. I felt a mix of disgust and heartbreak, but mostly I was just angry, furious that she could do this, that she could lie so effortlessly. I decided I needed to step back for a bit, give myself some space to think. I told her I needed to sleep on it, and I went to stay at a friend's place. Honestly, I didn't sleep much that night. My head was spinning. I kept replaying every moment, every lie, every sign I'd ignored. I kept asking myself, how could I have missed it? How could I have been so blind? The betrayal was like a knife twisting in my gut. I felt like I'd been punched in the face, then kicked while I was down. I wondered whether I should just cut her loose or try to fix this somehow, but deep down I knew the trust was shattered. The next couple of days were a blur. I kept going over everything in my head, trying to find some clarity. I started imagining her with jarred pictures flashing in my mind, and I couldn't stand it. I felt sick, like I was going to lose my mind. But I also realized I had to think about myself. I deserved better than a wife who cheated on me a week before our wedding, who lied to my face and dismissed my feelings. I decided I wouldn't chase her, beg her to stay, or try to fix what was broken. If she wanted to be with Jard, that was her choice. But I wasn't going to be a part of that anymore. I started planning how I was going to handle things. I wanted her out of my house, out of my life, but I also wanted to make her regret this. I wasn't just going to walk away empty-handed. I needed a way to make her feel the pain she caused me, to show her she couldn't just cheat and lie and get away with it. That's when the idea of revenge started to brew. Not some petty, childish revenge, but something calculated, something that would make her realize what she lost. I didn't want her to just walk away and think she got away with it. I wanted her to remember how much she hurt me, how she betrayed everything we had. So I started collecting evidence, more texts, some photos I found in her email backups, and I even installed a little hidden app on her phone. I wasn't planning to just confront her again. I was building a case, a way to make her understand the full extent of her betrayal. I knew once I had all the pieces, I'd be able to call her bluff, make her see that I knew everything, and that I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. I also knew I had to be smart about it. I wasn't going to do anything reckless. If I wanted to get justice, I'd do it on my own terms. The worst part is that I still loved her, or at least I thought I did. That's what messes with your head the most, knowing that even after all this, part of me still wanted her to come clean, to admit she was wrong and maybe try to fix things. But I knew that was probably a lost cause. The trust was gone, shattered beyond repair. And at that point, I was just waiting for the right moment to make her see that she couldn't cheat and lie her way out of this without consequences. I was done being the fool. It was time for her to face what she'd done, and I was going to be the one to make sure she paid for it. The days that followed were like walking through a fog. I kept busy, trying to stay level, but inside I was boiling. I had the evidence I needed now: hidden messages, some photos, and enough proof to make her realize I wasn't playing around anymore. I didn't want a messy breakup. I wanted her to understand exactly how badly she screwed everything up. The plan was simple in my mind. I'd confront her again, lay everything out, and let her see that I knew everything. But I also wanted to do it in a way that would hit her hard, make her realize that her betrayal wasn't just some fling, but a full-blown affair with my boss, Jard, just a week before our wedding. I set a date to meet her at her place. I wanted to catch her off guard, to see her reactions when she realized I knew the truth. When she opened the door, her face was expectant, like she thought she could still play innocent, still deny everything. I didn't give her that chance. I laid out the evidence on the table: the texts, the pictures, the emails. Her face twisted in frustration and anger as I watched her try to deny it all, but I wasn't buying her bullshit anymore. I told her I knew about Jard, about the sex, about the lies she told me to cover it up. She started crying again, saying she was sorry, that she loved me and it was just a mistake, a moment of weakness. But I interrupted her, telling her I wasn't interested. In her petty excuses, I told her I'd gone through everything and I wasn't going to pretend it didn't happen. That's when she turned bitchy, snapping at me, calling me paranoid, insecure, and saying I was overreacting. She even accused me of spying on her, of trying to control her like I was the bad guy. But I had enough. I told her she was a lying, cheating bitch and that I was done playing her game. That I deserved better than a woman who'd cheat on me with my boss just days before our wedding. Her face went cold then, like she realized she was caught, and she tried to flip the script. She said I was crazy, that I was making it all up, that Jard was just a friend, that I was jealous and insecure, and that I was ruining everything for no reason. But I saw through her bullshit. I had all the proof. I wasn't going to let her lie her way out of this. I told her I was done, that I was walking away, and I never wanted to see her again. Her bitchy attitude turned into bitterness, and she spat at me, calling me a chump for not seeing her true colors sooner. She said I was pathetic for believing in her, for trusting her. That moment, I knew I'd never be able to look at her the same way again. But what hit me hardest was the realization that I wasn't just losing her. I was losing everything I thought I knew about my life. I thought I was marrying a woman who loved me, who would stand by me no matter what. Instead, I found out she'd been lying and cheating behind my back, sneaking around with my boss just a week before our wedding. That betrayal cut deep. I felt like I was drowning, like my heart had been shattered into 1,000 pieces. The pain was unbearable, but I also knew I had to stay strong. I had to walk away, even if it hurt like hell. I told her I'd be filing for divorce, that I wanted nothing more to do with her. That's when she started crying harder, begging me to stay, promising she'd change, that she loved me, that I was the only one she ever truly cared about. I didn't believe her. Not anymore. I realized that her tears were just manipulation, that she was trying to make me feel guilty so I wouldn't go through with it. I just looked at her coldly and told her to get out. I didn't want her in my house, in my life, or in my head anymore. I had enough. I had to start over, rebuild myself after this mess. It was the hardest thing I'd ever done, watching her walk out that door, knowing I'd never see her the same way again. But I also knew I had to do it, for myself, for my sanity. The pain was fresh, but I was determined to move on. This whole ordeal had taught me one thing: never trust blindly and always listen to that little voice that tells you when something's off. Because if you don't, you might end up losing everything. In the days after she left, everything felt like a blur. My apartment was silent except for the constant nagging voice in my head replaying every moment. I kept asking myself why I didn't see it all coming sooner, why I trusted her so blindly. But deep down I knew the truth: trust was just a fragile illusion she shattered with her lies. I felt this crushing weight of betrayal, like my chest was caved in, but at the same time, a strange sense of clarity started to emerge. I realized I'd been a fool to ignore the signs, fool enough to believe her lies because I wanted so badly to believe her. I started distancing myself from everyone I knew, cutting off the people I thought I could count on. I needed time to process, to figure out what the hell I was going to do next. I knew I couldn't stay in that apartment anymore, not with the memory of her standing there, lying, crying, trying to manipulate me into staying. I threw myself into work, trying to drown out the pain, but every time I closed my eyes, images of her with Jard flooded my mind. I hated that feeling, this mixture of anger and heartbreak that refused to go away. As much as I wanted to lash out, to do something reckless, I knew I had to be smart. I wanted her to understand that I knew everything, that her lies had no hold over me anymore. I started planning ways to make her regret what she did, not just by walking away, but in a way that hit her where it hurt. I was going to make her see that she lost someone who truly cared, someone who loved her even after everything. I didn't want her to forget that she was the one who threw it all away, that she was the one who cheated, lied, and manipulated her way into a betrayal so cruel it still haunted me. One thing I kept coming back to was Jard. I knew I had to find a way to make him see what she really was, how she used him just like she used me. I found some of his social media accounts, and I started gathering information, things I could use if I decided to confront him directly. Honestly, I wanted to ruin him just as much as I wanted to make Emily feel some pain. I knew that revenge wasn't exactly noble, but after what she did, I didn't care about being noble anymore. I wanted her to feel what I felt, completely betrayed, humiliated, and used. Meanwhile, Emily kept trying to contact me. First, it was a few frantic texts, then a few calls. I ignored every single one. I wasn't interested in her sob stories or her promises of change. I knew better now. She was a liar, a manipulator, and I wasn't going to let her worm her way back into my life, at least not without paying a price. I could see she was desperate, that her confidence had shattered, but I didn't care. I had already made my decision. I knew that moving on was the only way I could find some peace, even if it hurt like hell. What hurt the most was realizing how much I'd trusted her, how I'd believed in everything we had, only to find out it was built on lies. But I also learned a lesson. Never ignore the signs, never let yourself be blinded by love or hope. Because sometimes, the person you love the most can turn out to be the biggest liar of all. I didn't want revenge just to hurt her. I wanted her to understand that her choices had consequences. That's why I was biding my time, waiting for the right moment to show her that I wasn't going to be a doormat anymore. I'd take back my life. One way or another. That was my focus now, reclaiming what I thought I'd lost forever. The day I finally decided to act, I felt a strange mixture of relief and anger. I knew I'd gone through every possible emotion, heartbreak, betrayal, rage, and now it was time to put an end to the chaos. I'd collected enough evidence to make her see that I wasn't some fool who'd be duped again. I wanted her to feel the full weight of what she'd done, to understand that her actions had consequences. I wasn't just seeking revenge for the sake of it. I wanted her to realize she'd lost someone who truly loved her, someone who had given her everything only to be spat on and betrayed. I arranged to meet her at a neutral place, a quiet coffee shop where I knew she wouldn't expect me to come. I sat there for a few minutes, nerves jumbled up, trying to keep my composure. When she walked in, her eyes were swollen from crying, and her face looked defeated, like she knew she'd lost. I didn't say much at first. I just pulled out the folder with all the evidence I'd compiled. Her eyes widened as she saw the screenshots, the photos, the emails, all laid out for her. I watched her struggle to maintain her composure, but I could see the guilt and shame creeping into her expression. I told her flatly that I knew everything. I told her how much she'd hurt me, how she'd lied, cheated, and used me like a toy. I explained that I was done being her fool, that I wanted her to understand how much she'd destroyed what we had. I laid it all out, the texts, the sex, the lies, her affair with Jard, everything. Her bitchy attitude finally cracked. She tried to minimize everything, to deny it all again, but I didn't let her. I laid it out clearly. She had betrayed me just days before our wedding, and there was no coming back from that. Her face turned red with anger and frustration. She called me paranoid, insecure, a jealous fool. She said I was overreacting, that Jard was just a friend, that I was jealous because I couldn't handle losing her. But I told her it was too late for excuses. I'd seen the truth and I was going to be manipulated anymore. I told her she was nothing but a selfish, manipulative bitch who threw away the best thing she ever had for a quick fuck. Her tears started again, but I just shook my head. I had no sympathy left for her. I told her I was done, that I was walking away and that she could have Jard and her lies. I said I'd be filing for divorce and making damn sure she never got the chance to ruin me again. Her face twisted in anger as she realized I wasn't backing down. She spat out some hurtful words, blaming me for everything, but I just stood up, looked her in the eyes, and told her to leave. I was done apologizing for myself, done trying to justify how much she hurt me. I'd rather be alone than with someone who lied to my face at the altar. As she stormed out, crying and cursing, I felt a strange sense of closure. No, it didn't erase the pain, and no, I didn't feel victorious, just exhausted. What I learned from all this is that trust is fragile, and once broken, it's nearly impossible to repair. But I also learned that I deserve someone who respects me, someone who isn't going to cheat or lie just before the biggest day of our lives. I realized that the only way forward was to walk away and rebuild myself. Sure, I'm still hurting, but at least now I know what I'm worth. And I hope whoever's reading this just know. Never ignore the signs, and don't be afraid to walk away from someone who doesn't respect you. Because in the end, you're the only one who can truly protect yourself from getting torn apart.